Hello, everyone, and welcome to the September 2025 OpenAlex webinar. This month is the quarterly town hall, and I think it's a really exciting one because it's one that starts to have some of the things that we've talked about for a long time start to come together. So I'm just going to pass it right over to our CEO and co-founder, Jason Priem, and he's going to give us the update. Jason, over to you.
Thank you, Kyle. Yeah, so we'll crack on because we are starting a little bit late. Sorry about that. So I'm gonna spend 5 minutes doing what I'm doing right now, which is introducing what I'm gonna talk about. Then we're gonna spend 5 minutes talking about Q3 in review. So that's the one we're just coming to the end of right now. And then we're gonna talk about the Q4 roadmap, which, as Kyle said, has got all the exciting stuff in it. Specifically, we're going to talk about launching our new grants and funders project. We're going to talk about launching Walden, which is the code name for our complete rewrite, after the hand motion, our complete rewrite of OpenAlex. It's named that because it's a homage to Henry David Thoreau's book, Walden, where he tried to simplify his life. We're trying to simplify OpenAlex. And then finally, a big push for new revenue that we're going to be making. I'll talk because this is the last quarter. I think it's a great time to talk about what we're going to be doing next year. You notice I'm calling this 2226 ideas, not commitment or roadmap, because it's still kind of pretty early to say for the whole year what we're going to be doing. But we can talk a little bit about some of the ideas we have, and I'd love to hear your feedback. So then we got 15 minutes for Q&A. And like I said, I'm super keen to hear people's feedback and questions. There's a lot to talk about and a lot to probably have questions about, would be my guess. So cracking on, let's start talking about Q3. Like I said, we're going to talk about what we plan to do and what we achieved. And what's cool is all these slides from the other town halls from this year are all online. So you can go and check me and make sure that when I say this is what we plan to do, this is exactly what I presented last quarter. So let's talk about what we plan to do. The plans, as you may recall from last quarter, were super simple because we said we really got to finish, in particular, the Walden launch. That was it's a big project. It's super important to finish this quarter, and we got to kind of like narrow our focus to make that happen. But we do want to keep working on this project to monitor funding and grants for literature. And we're kind of excited about APIs. We're hoping maybe, ideally we're going to launch. So that was the plan. Let's see what we achieved. So new APIs did not happen. We didn't do anything with that. It was a maybe, and we needed to cut out our maybes. The grants project did happen. Yay! Very excited about that. So we got new funding from the Wellcome Trust in the UK. It's a 3.1. What's the number, Kyle?
3.5.
3.5, thank you. I just found $400,000. It's a $3.5 million grant to build the world's first complete and open funding database for research. And I'll talk a little bit more exactly what that means, but we won the grant. It was, really exciting. Worked really close with Wellcome. They were awesome and started making progress, which we'll talk about in a minute. But that was quite a big focus just because it's, getting grants is effort intensive. Walden launch. Well, I said we're super important we do it this quarter. I'm happy to say we almost did it this quarter, to the point where we are going to launch it on the very first day of next quarter. So October 1st, if y'all have been paying attention to the blog and the listservs, is when we're going to launch the beta for Walden. So I'm going to give us a partial credit on that one, because if we moved it one day up, it could technically be this quarter. Right now, the data and algos are 95% done. They're not going to launch 100% done because that's the beta, but they're 95% done. The beta will end in October and it'll go live in November, but you'll still be able to access the old data. And then in December, the old data will go away. I mean, it'll still be there via snapshot, but the old API, the access via the old API will go away. But yeah, I don't want to talk too much about the future because that's a different section. The other two things we achieved are something called Oreo, which I'm going to talk about later. It's a really important part of Walden, and something called CUI, or Curation UI v2, which is also really important. And those are both either done or almost done. And we'll talk about that more in the future. I don't want to get as you see, we're only spending 5 minutes on kind of the past overview because so much of the past overview is like we're not going to see it until the very first day of Q4. So I'm going to kind of postpone it till then. A big change for some of y'all will be that we're pressing pause on the analytics UI. And that was and is a system that allows you to ask way more complex queries of OpenAlex and get results in a tabular format. So saying, for instance, like which of my researchers at the University of Florida specializes in kelp research and has done research with people from the developing world in the last 2 years. Group that by researcher and show me the FWCI of those publications which resulted from those collaborations. So pretty in-depth stuff. Basically, I think we got pretty close to having, something to deliver on some of those. But we decided to press pause so that we can focus more on the Walden launch. I think that's way more important. And honestly, we just kind of found during I guess it's an alpha right now. We really appreciate our partners for working with us on that it's really expensive to run that. Those queries are super complex and it's super cool, but we need to try and figure out, kind of go back to the drawing board a little bit on that and make sure that we've got good alignment between the sustainability plan for that thing and how much it actually costs to run. I think it would end up costing around $50,000 a year for an institution to use that tool. And I don't think there's institutions who right now really want to pay that money. If I'm wrong and you're an institution that has $50,000 a year to pay for an analytics tool like I just described, by all means, please get in touch because that would maybe change the calculus for us if we could get a few of those. But so far, I think right now we need to focus on, for Q4, we really need to focus on Walden and particularly like not be leaking money out of a product that's like still got a ways to go. And finally, and that wasn't planned, just to be clear, that was in the achieved but not planned category. And finally, in the achieved but not planned category, we have unpayable improvements. So one of the things we promised y'all when we launched the new unpayable rewrite, which is on the same, Walden cluster basically, was that we'd be able to fix stuff and improve stuff really quick. And we can, and we did, which is really cool. So we did a project to improve our coverage of journal metadata. So we had a lot of journals that are fully OA journals, but we didn't know they're fully OA journals. And of course, DOAJ, that's the easy one. Everyone says, do DOAJ. Yeah, of course, like we did that a long time ago. But there's a lot of open access journals that aren't in DOAJ. And it's really tough to tell if they're fully open access because a lot of times, you could theoretically just look at anyways, it's hard to tell. We went out and we asked some of our friends at OJS, Juan Pablo Alperin and his colleague Diego, who's now saying I apologize, I just forgot. But they worked with us to help us get a list of all the OJS journals, which we then crawl to make sure they're open. They're mostly open. We crawl to make sure they're open. We also did a couple other projects just to basically find out more journals that are actually open. And this is pretty cool. We went from, if you look on the right, the ground truth, about 25% of journal articles are gold OA. And those are published in a fully open journal. And we were only showing on May 20th, 14%. And on August 26th, now we're showing 19%, which is pretty cool. That's about what would you say, about a 33% increase. And, change a couple other things on there too. So it was really cool to be able to just in a week or two, make a big effort to improve on payable and fix a lot of bugs. Now let's talk about the Q4 roadmap. As I said, most of what we did last quarter, was leading up to this quarter. So I'm going to spend a little bit more time on this quarter. I'm having a little issue with my screen sharing, so give me 1 second. I'm going to hit stop share and then I'll bring it right back. Give me just 1 second. Well, I'm going to bring it back as fast as I can, I should say. Hang on. Okay, so here, and then I'm going to share. What I'm going to do is just leave it in like drawing mode instead of presentation mode. It's not quite as pretty, but hopefully everybody can still see that. You still see that, Kyle? All right, thank you very much. I don't know why it's breaking, but it is. Okay, let's talk Q4 roadmap. So I want to talk about the grants launch, I want to talk about the Walden launch, and the revenue blitz. So first things first. On the grants launch, what are we going to do this quarter? Three main things. First thing is create an awards entity. So we have right now the concept of a funder in OpenAlex, but we don't have the concept really of a grant. Like we're not actually like treating grants as first-class citizens. We can change that. So that's what we're going to do. So when Walden launches in October, it's going to have an awards entity, which is really cool. And we'll be able to link that entity to other entities in our graph. So we've got works, we've got authors, we've got funders, we've got institutions, and awards will be able to connect to all those others. So you'll be able to say, hey, show me all of the works that have been funded by this particular award. You can browse through awards and sort awards by funders and everything else. So that's really exciting. It's the biggest change or schema that we've launched in a long time. Next thing is we want to actually get more of those awards. Right now, all of our awards are going to come from Crossref, which is great, but it's like kind of a small, yay Crossref, but it's kind of a small set. So what we're going to do is we're going to parse awards and funders from the full text of PDFs. We have over 50 million PDFs. A lot of those PDFs say what they were funded by. Hey, we should be able to get that from the PDF, and we're going to. And then the third thing is we're going to start adding awards directly from funders. So instead of looking at the PDF, a lot of these funders have got lists of awards that they have done. Those lists don't really exist in any like open format anywhere, certainly not widely accessible. Part of our grant is we're going to start ingesting those into OpenAlex. And those will be the place where people can go to find out, hey, such and such a funding agency, what awards have you actually given out? Well, here's the list, and you can find it right in OpenAlex. Those are going to be the three big things we're focusing on for the grants project in Q4, and we got a lot more coming for later quarters. For Walden, that's probably the biggest chunk of time I want to talk about because it's definitely the biggest project. I would say it's the biggest project we've ever done, like including actually launching OpenAlex in the first place. Because when we launched OpenAlex, it was really heavily reliant on data from Microsoft Academic Graph, and this is like complete rewrite. So it's exciting. It's the biggest in 15 years of this company. It's the biggest project we've ever done. I'm really, really excited about it. We only have 15 minutes to talk about it. So I'm just going to try and like hit the high notes and make sure we have plenty of time for questions. So what are the big wins? What's the point of this? Like we've been waiting this for literally a year for this to finish. Why have we been waiting so long? First thing, more works. Everyone's always saying, I wish you had more works. Great. Well, we are going to go over for the first time over 400 million works in OpenAlex, which is really exciting. To give you a sense of scale, we have 270 million today. And we're going to, again, cross the 400 million threshold. So I'm really excited about that. The main source of those new works are going to be DataCite, so a lot of data sets, as you might expect, and repositories. So we've always covered repositories, but we didn't really create new works from repositories. We just linked repository content with existing works that we got from somewhere else. So we're actually going to make new works from repositories. And I'll talk a little bit in a second about, in fact, let me talk about that now as a quick aside. For a long time in Scholarly Communication and in OpenAlex, we kind of think of like a work is sort of an article. Yeah, there's other stuff. Like maybe there's some book chapters in there. There's the odd book, maybe some dissertations. Sometimes there's a data set. But in general, if you say, hey, Kyle Demings, he published like 100 works. Wow, that's like probably about 100 like papers. Good for you, Kyle, right? However, what is going to be really interesting about this this OpenAlex launch is we really are doing what I and a lot of us in the open science community have always been saying we should do, which is works is works. Data sets are works. Gray literature are works. Right? Even small data sets, even figures, even software packages, like all these little things that are a lot of times extremely different from journal articles are indeed works. And we're going to call them that OpenAlex. Like we're putting our money where our mouth is. But that people are going to need to adjust to that a little bit in the same way that, like I said, I think we need to start thinking about work as thingy. It's a thingy that you made. It's not necessarily impressive. It's not necessarily unimpressive, but it's got an item in our catalog. And so like if you're trying to assess someone's productivity, for instance, right? If you're trying to assess their wealth, you would say, how many thingies do you have? Well, I don't know, you might have like 1 million thingies or one thingy, and that doesn't tell me much about your wealth because it really depends on the thingy, doesn't it? And I think that's kind of what we want to start saying when we're assessing output is, okay, how many journal articles have you published, right? How many citations have those journal articles received? Okay, how many data sets have you published? How many data sets have those, how many citations have the data sets received? and so on, right? Like we just need to get like that's the project that we're gonna be doing with OpenAlex. We're gonna be trying to launch some like automatic filters or something like that, right? So we don't just surprise people. Like there's an institution, the Japan Fusion Center or something like that, that has 22 million works in the new OpenAlex. 22 million from that one institution, right? So we're gonna have to start getting a little smarter about apples to apples because they're generating crazy numbers of data sets that are much easier to generate and much like faster to generate than a huge monograph that's some 10 years of someone's life. Again, that's always been true, but what I like about the relaunch is people are gonna have to really like take that seriously about like all works are not the same. Okay, that's the aside. And I just want to prep everybody to just get ready because it's going to change a lot of analyses. So more works, that's the first big win. Second big win, faster fixes. And the faster fixes kind of go into two categories. We've actually launched some stuff now. Because we're able to do stuff faster, we're able to just kind of along the way for the rewrite, just make some improvements because it's fun. We didn't want to get too bogged down in that because the whole point is to rewrite it. But two big things that we changed are language and retractions. So we were missing about 100,000-ish retractions in the old system. Fixed it, yay, it's done. And we also added to our retraction algorithms. So we're actually catching retractions that aren't in Retraction Watch or Crossref by the very simple expedient of looking at the title. And if the title says this is retracted, then we just mark it retracted, which is cool. And it's just super easy to do now. We also, big time thanks to Maxime. Do you remember Maxime's last name, Kyle? A very helpful gentleman named Maxime, who who published a paper that was easy to find about language detection in OpenAlex. And he tested like a ton of different, he and his partner, his collaborators actually, because it's not just him, tested a bunch of different algorithms for language detection in OpenAlex. And that was great. We just used that work from the community, implemented that algorithm, and now our language detection has really improved. Later, we're going to get into kind of the bigger fish. So authors and institutions. Those are harder, and we're going to be digging into those probably early next year. The great thing is, again, it's easy for us to fix. And then finally, kind of a special case of easy to fix is curation. So when people from the community have bugs, as sometimes they do, because it turns out we're imperfect, we want it to be very easy for people to make suggestions to fix those bugs, and not even just make suggestions, to actually fix them themselves. So instead of a like, submit your ticket experience, which is kind of what we've had, we want a Wikipedia experience. Someone's wrong on the internet. Let me click this button and make it fixed, right? And so that's what we're going to be able to launch at the end by the end of Q4 is that better, faster curation experience. We couldn't really do that with the old system for a bunch of like boring reasons. The other two things I want to talk about for one launch are, as I mentioned, Oreo. So that's the OpenAlex rewrite evaluation overview. I'm going to show you that in just a second, and the curation UI, which I'm also going to show you after that. So let's start with the OpenAlex rewrite evaluation overview. Now this is in progress, but this is something that's going to launch in October. I mean, I guess you guys are now, but like probably don't because it's like super buggy and changing all the time. But in October, we're going to launch this, and it'll give you a chance to actually look and see how does current OpenAlex compare to old OpenAlex, which is really important. We want to try and make it a smooth transition for people. So as you can see here, we got every single one of our entities has got an entry here. We're sampling. This is not on the full data set because we can move a little faster on a sample. And we can start digging into some of the things that we might learn. So let's look at tests first of all. So these are tests that we're seeing of what's changed. FWCI is still in progress. So 26% of works, the FWCI is different than it used to be because there's a bug in FWCI. We're not done with that yet. Again, this doesn't launch until October, so give us a little. But a lot of these things are great. So 3% of works have loss is OA status. So they used to be OA, now they're not. Most of the time that's not a bug, but sometimes it is. So we're trying to track that, right? 2% of, 2% of works, the 1% of the PMID change. That probably shouldn't happen. So in most cases, that's probably a bug. That's 1% of works. So you can just kind of go through. Language is lost. We don't want to lose any languages. Hey, we didn't lose any languages. Is that great? Authors changed. 0% of the authors have changed. That's good, right? So you can just kind of, you can just kind of go through and you can do it by category, right? And say, okay, we want to look at, open access stuff, right? And here's our open access stuff. And what's cool about this is we can start to see there's bugs, but there's also features. So for 7% of work, we actually added is OA. So we were able to go out and find open access that we couldn't find before. And if we want, we can click on those and actually see, okay, well, which are these works where we added OA? And we can compare them exactly like side by side. We can go check them out in the API, right? So it's just a chance for everybody, for us to be able to dig in. This is what we're using every day to guide our work. But what I think is cool about it is we're going to launch it with the tool. And so y'all can use it to kind of guide your evaluations too. If you guys have suggestions for tests or plots or something to add, please let us know. We're not going to do all of them because it's really easy. There's so much data. It's really easy to get kind of over, what do they call it? Anyways, just overwhelmed by the data in it. We want to try and avoid that. A couple that I wanted to call out is I kind of was bragging about our licenses. So let's real quick. Oh no, about our languages. So let's check languages here real quick. So here's language. So here's language added. So 5% of work we were able to add a new language we didn't have, or change that language to something other than English, which is good because we have a lot of stuff that's not English. Another one that's kind of cool to look at is license. Oh, what was it? I said we're gonna do language and I'm gonna check language and retractions. Yeah, so we can check retractions. So the retractions added, it's so small, it's only 100,000, it doesn't really show up as a percentage change of total works. But if you want to see the ones where we've added retraction, here's one. I think that the sample hasn't refreshed yet. What's cool is that you can look at the works and let's look at the plot real quick because it's really cool. I think it's really cool. So people are really concerned about, right? They want the kind of citation numbers to stay the same. They're not going to stay the same. Like we're actually redoing all the citations. We're gathering a lot of new references that we didn't have. In fact, if you look here at reference works on a per work basis, we're counting how many references were we able to find. This is right, outgoing references. This is the reference section. How many references could we find in production? That's on this axis. How many could we find in Walden? That's on this axis. And although the correlation, this is rank order correlation, although the rank order correlation rounds to 1, you can see that they're not actually exact, right? So here's somewhere we found 10 references in Walden, but we didn't find any in production. And you can also see that everything's kind of above this little line right there. That's because we were able to find for Walden, we have more references than we do for production. Not a lot, but a little bit, which is cool. So the citations, as I said, are not exactly perfect, but you can see that they're clustering pretty nicely around this line. This is all one and one. It's just a little jittering, so you can avoid overplotting. So you can kind of go through there and start looking at, on a work level. The last one I want to show you is you don't have to do work. So I was talking about licenses a second ago. And we can look at any entity we want. So we can look at institutions and plot institutions. So now instead of being works, these dots are institutions. As you can see, most institutions are going to see their number of works go up because we brought in a whole bunch of new works with the changes, right? Like we're bringing repository and data site. So here's, Sao Paulo Museum of Art. In production, it had 52 works, but in Walden, it has 2,000. And so you can just kind of start, and again, not every institution is here. This is a sample of 10,000 institutions, but you can get a little bit of a sense for how it's kind of going to change, some of your analyses. And you can dig into, last one I'll show is, where's licenses? Licenses. Some of these, like what's cool is everything's an entity for us, even a license is an entity, which means we can plot the licenses as well. So we can say each of these, pale blue dots is with apologies to cross-second, each of these is a license. So here's the one that's changed the most. So you can see in production, we had 800,000 public domain works, and Walden we have 13 million. And I would guess that, well, that's probably not, this is actually only works that are in both. So this wouldn't include the new works we added. So I think this is actually just a result of our improved license detection, which we have launched. So we have better license detection. Cool. So most of the licenses that are above this line, you see that we actually lost a little bit here. So we lost a bunch of MIT licenses and we almost completely lost these 2 licenses. Those are bugs. It affects 1,000 works. So it is not above our threshold and being worried about it right now. But the great thing about this is, hey, if your whole dissertation is about, what is it, new GPL or Apache or new GPL licenses, okay, get in touch. And then it's probably not a big priority for us for the next month or so, but let us know. And at least if it changed, that we know about the change, right? And that it's not a surprise for us. So that's what I also want to look at the curate tool. As you see here, this is Oreo and curation UI. Curation UI is not is also not launched yet. OpenAlex. But sorry. Oh, it changed my sorry. Do I have the right? Oh no, it's sources. Sorry. Okay, so here's the curation. You can curate works and sources right now, or we'll launch. You can't do it right now, but we will launch the ability to curate works and sources. All of the entities you'll be able to curate, right? So let's look at sources first. You can see that here's a list, right, of all our sources, 274,000. Let me look for a particular source. I don't know, lost one. I can click on the source. And here's all the information, just some of the information we know. And you see these guys little pencils. If you want to change the name, oh, possible isn't really a name. Like I can submit this and it'll go into the moderation queue. And within a day or so, it'll be a day or two, it'll be live on the site and in every single work. That's the cool thing about the rewrite is it'll not only change it for the source itself, but all of the works that are assigned to that source in their metadata, the source name will change. And it'll all happen within a day or two, which is really hard, much harder than it sounds. So you can change all these different things. I'm not going to walk them step by step. What the plan is for this is we're going to eliminate the moderation queue for a lot of users. So we're going to talk to people. We want to basically deputize people that we know are people in the community who do a great job of this. They know as much about it as we do. Why are we monitoring their work? That's crazy. Like that's too central. It shouldn't be going through us. We trust y'all, but we need to pick the right people to trust. So instead of having everybody submit curation, which Kyle can tell you about half of those 60%, something like that, creations we have right now are just wrong. Just because, bless their hearts, people commit, they submit curations, they don't know what they're talking about. Again, bless their hearts, I'm not, no shade on them, but they just don't. So what we want to try and do is say, hey, instead of everybody submits a curation, we monitor, which takes us forever, we're going to say a few people submit a curation. If you want to be in that group, we're going to create a training and you can watch training, answer a couple questions, and then you're deputized as we'll give you a little star, something like that. You'll be a curator. So that's the sources. And you can also do it for works. And the works is not quite as far along. But what's cool about the works is, let me pick one here, the state. So this is one I wrote. As you can see, you can't really curate these things, no pencils. Those will be coming. The locations is pretty cool. You can curate those. So if one of these locations has got a PDF URL, you click on add PDF URL, right? And you can also take the PDF URL off. So that is the QE Curation UI tool. Moving on, I know we're running short on time for questions, so it's pretty easy to do these. We're going to quarterly snapshots. We've been saying we're doing quarterly snapshots for a while. It was hard to do until Walden, so we are going to do quarterly snapshots. It's relevant for revenue because some people are like, well, we'd kind of like to do the premium, but the monthly is good for us. Going to quarterly saves us money, and it also gives the community a chance to support what we're doing by, if you want more faster update, you can help subsidize our extremely high costs of doing those faster updates. To put that in context, if you look at other people in the community, so Orchid does a dump every 6 months. OpenAir does a dump every 6 months. So I think a quarterly dump is still way ahead of everybody else who's doing this. So I don't feel like we're changing in an important way. We want to give better value for folks who are using the premium API service. So we're looking to do a vector search. So you can do a search like that's a query, and then we'll get, if you search for neoplasm, we'll also find cancer, right? Those are kind of like just like semantic search type stuff. We want a service where you can download PDFs, both raw and parsed with Grobid from the API. Both those will be paid by the API call. Again, we charge for services, not for data. So you can do anything you want with the data you get from those, but you pay for the service. And we're kind of looking at the diff format. So we release a diff, you can get changed works every day, but sometimes there's a lot of changes and people want to narrow that down. So we're going to we're looking at that. These are all things we're going to explore. It's a revenue thing, right? So these aren't really so much like, hey, these are features that are on the roadmap. It's more like we want to talk to people and see if, hey, is this part of the revenue plan for you? If it is, then it might get on the roadmap. I'm bringing up here just because I'm curious to see people interested. Same thing with institutional value. We're going to be looking at giving people bespoke features like dashboards. If you need something that or coverage of a particular database that's like of interest to you, but perhaps not to the rest of the user community, talk to us. We're really interested in that. And also doing kind of consulting and creation. Like we find that a lot of people don't have the kind of person hours to devote to curation. We can do that for you. But like I said, get in touch with us. So those are things we want to really kind of focus because we haven't really been chasing revenue as much as we probably normally would be over the last several quarters because we've been so focused on Walden. 2006 ideas, just gonna show you the slide. I don't think I actually need to say very much about this. This just means we're gonna add a bunch of new sources. We will be bringing analytics back, and it will be a combined system with the analytics side and the discovery side. We'll do something like that in 2026. We're going to be building community around funders, and we're hiring people to help us with curation and community. All right, Q&A. I'm 3 minutes late.
Yeah, that's okay. That was great. Thank you, Jason. I'm going to stop the recording. So thanks everyone who joined, and thanks for those who are watching afterwards. And then we'll go right into the Q&A.